The YouTube is now the greatest guru. So everybody goes to the YouTube. Unfortunately, they pick up so many ideas which are, some of them are very peculiar, and try to practice them and get confused. So we have enough and more confusion, so YouTube has added to that. But in the midst of it, Sarvapriyananda is trying to clear the confusion by Advaita. As you know, Swami Vivekananda said, Vedanta is the future religion of humanity. And he also said, if we can work it out, this will be for all peoples and for all times. He believed that the religion of Vedanta, the philosophy of Vedanta, is the future of all rationalists and all people who are really interested in a scientific religion and philosophy. Swami Vivekananda spoke about his life's work. It's a very immortal sentence which I always remember. He wrote to Alasinga Perumal, to put Hindu ideas into English and make out of dry philosophy intricate mythology and cure startling psychology, a religion which shall be simple, easy, popular, at the same time meet the requirements of the highest minds, is a task only those can understand who have attempted it. The dry, abstract Advaita should become living, poetic in everyday life. After bewildering vague yogism must come the most concrete moral forms. And this should result in scientific and practical psychology. And all this must be put in a form that even a child may be able to grasp it. And that is my life's work. So to be able to put Advaita in a very simple term is actually simple, but all of you know that scholars have an uncanny knack of making simple things complicated. Because scholarship means you put a simple thing in a very complicated fashion that nobody understands. And audience is also very happy. Oh, it's a wonderful lecture. What did you follow? I couldn't understand anything, but it's wonderful. No, this is Vedanta. Vedanta says the joy of not being able to understand is the fundamental basis of Vedanta. Sushupti, where covered by ignorance, results in great joy. Ignorance is bliss. The moment you know many things, you'll be unhappy. If you know the one thing of which the many is the manifestation, ultimately the difference between the one and the many also gets erased. Then you get the supreme joy, the ekatva vijnana. So Sarvapriyananda has a very wonderful gift of the gab and trying to put complicated things in a very simple language, following the tradition of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna had a wonderful knack of putting very complicated things in a very simple way. So much so, his teachings appear to be simplistic, although they are the most profound, as Swami Vivekananda said. I will repeat a sentence which I spoke about Sarvapriyananda when I was in New York. He was here, the first registrar of this university when it was beginning. Dhakne, Talwarne, Kindu Nidhiram Shordar, in Bengali we say, we had no buildings, we had no land, we had just nothing, but we had a vice chancellor and a registrar, both of them moving around, calling ourselves vice chancellors and registrars. So he was the first registrar of the university, and he has been with us since beginning as a brahmachari. I used to teach him Vedanta and then made him memorize certain things, which even now he remembers and repeats. He is very good in Kenopanishad because he had memorized it when I compelled him to do so. There is a book by Hans Bethe. Hans Bethe was a Nobel laureate in physics. He was the person who discovered the source of solar or stellar energy as nuclear fusion. He and his student Schweber wrote a book, Mesons and Fields. When we were students, it's a very famous book. Then Schweber came and told him, sir, this book is outdated now. We should bring a revised edition. Then Bethe was happy. You go ahead and revise this. He revised it so much that it became a kind of a new book. Then Bethe, being very honest, he said, see, it's a new book which you have written. You please remove my name. I will rather write a foreword to this book. The first few sentences of the foreword I will quote and then stop. He wrote, it's always a great joy to see one's children grow up and to know that they can do things which the parents no longer understand. This book is a great example. So I tell that to Swami Sarvapriyananda. We watch with great joy Sarvapriyananda growing up and talking about things which we do not exactly understand. And he will talk about the Pañcadaśī. So we took the opportunity of having Sarvapriyananda's presence here and converted into a half-a-day international colloquium. International meaning that he is from New York, and therefore one component of the internationality makes it international. And NAC, requires all this. So we have formulated in this way. There will be 3 scholars of Vedanta doing PhD here, will speak for 10 minutes each in Sanskrit and different aspects of Vedanta. And Dr. Venkataramana Bhat, who is Ashtavadhani, here, all of you know him, he will speak on Shravana Manana Nididhyāsana, śrotavyo, mantavyo, nididhyāsitavyaḥ from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad for 15-20 minutes. Then Sarvapriyananda takes over and speaks for 40 minutes on Pañcadaśī. Sri Ramakrishna seems to have been very unhappy with Pañcadaśī. There are stories and stories. So, he was just now telling me, the great Mahapurva Paksha of the Pañcadaśī is Ramakrishna himself. So, how to save Pañcadaśī is a mission which is taken up. Pañcadaśī is a much later text. The problem with the Pañcadaśī is a kind of a research text. It doesn't follow the traditional concepts of Vedanta put in the traditional form. And therefore, the beauty of the Pañcadaśī is that it has developed Vedanta in a way which is acceptable to people at that time without being polemical. Advaita Vedanta, in a sense, got caught in Nyaya thanks to the onslaught by the Dvaitins and the Vishishtadvaitins, and Bengal being the argumentative Bengalis, they developed Navya Nyaya. They were not satisfied with the usual kind of ordinary old Nyaya, and Madhusudana Saraswati's Advaita Siddhi is supposed to be the last word in this. So the polemics and Nyaya took charge, and as Tapasyanji beautifully used to say, Ajnana became the focus rather than Brahman. So it becomes a Mayavada and Ajnana. People were worried about the nature of Ajnana than the nature of Brahman himself. So Sarvapriyananda will expound this a little more. So we welcome him heartily.
मोक्ष प्राप्तये एव प्रयासः इत्यत्र नास्ति संदेहः लेशः। सत्सु बहुषु दर्शनेषु ब्रह्मतत्व प्रतिपादनेन साक्षात् मोक्षमार्गम् उन्मोच्य उत्तुंगविष्टरम् अधिरोहति वेदांत दर्शनम्। प्रस्थानत्रयोपेतं चेदं वेदांत दर्शनम्। तम तु उपनिषदं पुरुषं पृच्छामि इति बृहत् आरण्यक उपनिषद अनुसारेण परम पुरुषस्य परमात्मन उपनिषत् एक समधिगम्यत्वम् उक्तम् इति प्रस्थानत्रये प्रथमं मुख्यम् उपनिषत् प्रस्थानम् एतन्मूलकत्वेनैव गीताप्रस्थानस्य ब्रह्मसूत्रप्रस्थानस्य च प्रामाण्यं श्रुतिमूलक स्मृतिवत्। सूत्रकारः भगवान् वादरायणोऽपि न्यायेन वेदान्तार्थनिर्णय प्रवृत्तः सन् श्रुतिमेव प्रमाणीकरोति। श्रुतेः शब्दात् आमनन्ति अधीयते शास्ति इत्यादिभिः किञ्च स्मृतेश्च स्मरन्ति च अपि च स्मर्यन्ते इत्यादिभिः स्मृतिमपि प्रमाणयितुम् उद्युक्तः। किञ्च भाष्यकारः आचार्य शङ्करः वेदान्तवाक्यकुसुमग्रथनार्थत्वात् सूत्राणाम् इति वदन् इमम् आशयं दृढीकरोति। एवं श्रुतिप्रस्थाने असकृत् प्रतिपादितं ब्रह्मणः शास्त्रप्रमाणकत्वं सूत्रप्रस्थानानुसारेण यथामति विचारयामि। श्रुतिप्रमाणान्यपि तत्र तत्र स्थानेषु नियोज्यन्ते। यद्यपि अखिले न्यायप्रस्थाने 5,550 संख्यकानि सूत्राणि वर्तन्ते, तथापि आदौ अधिकरणचतुष्टयेषु विद्यमानैः चतुर्भिः सूत्रैः एव वेदान्तस्य मूलं तत्त्वं प्रतिपादितं। शिष्टानि सूत्राणि तद्व्याख्यानभूतानि इति साम्प्रदायिकानां सम्मतिः। तथा हि मोक्षप्राप्त्यर्थम् अधिकारिणा ब्रह्मजिज्ञासा कर्तव्या इति प्रथमसूत्रेण निर्दिष्टं। किं च तद् ब्रह्म यस्य जिज्ञासा कर्तव्या? अत्र उच्यते लक्षणप्रमाणाभ्यां वस्तुसिद्धिः इति। आदौ ब्रह्मणः जिज्ञासा कर्तव्या इति उक्तं, ततः परं लक्षणप्रमाणाभ्यां द्वितीय अधिकरणेन जन्माधिकरणस्य सूत्रं जन्माद्यस्य यतः इति सूत्रेण ब्रह्मणः तटस्थलक्षणं कथयति। अत्र तस्य व्याख्यायां भाष्यकारेण उक्तम् अस्य जगतः जन्मादि अस्य यतः अस्य जगतः नामरूपाभ्यां व्याकृतस्य अनेककर्तृभोक्तृसंयुक्तस्य प्रतिनियतदेशकालनिमित्तक्रियाफलाश्रयस्य मनसापि अचिन्त्यरचनारूपस्य जन्मस्थितिभङ्गं यतः सर्वज्ञात् सर्वशक्तेः कारणात् भवति तद् ब्रह्म इति। एतेन ब्रह्मणः सर्वज्ञत्वं प्रसंगादेव उक्तं भवति। न हि साधारणः कश्चित् एवं विचित्रजगतः सर्जनक्षमः। द्वितीये जन्माधिकरणे ब्रह्मणः लक्षणमुक्त्वा तृतीये शास्त्रयोनित्वाधिकरणे शास्त्रयोनित्वरूपप्रमाणप्रदर्शनेन ब्रह्मणः सर्वज्ञत्वं दृढयति। शास्त्रयोनित्वाधिकरणे प्रकरणद्वयं प्रथमप्रकरणेन ब्रह्मणः सर्वज्ञत्वं प्रकाशयति। द्वितीयवर्णकद्वयमस्ति। प्रथमवर्णकेन ब्रह्मणः सर्वज्ञत्वं प्रकाशयति, द्वितीयवर्णकेन ब्रह्मणः शास्त्रप्रमाणकत्वं शास्त्रमेव ब्रह्मणः ज्ञाने एकमेव प्रमाणम् इति प्रमाणयति। एवं शास्त्रयोनित्वाधिकरणे तत्र एकमेव सूत्रं वर्तते शास्त्रयोनित्वात् इति। अत्र शास्त्रयोनित्वात् इति पदस्य शास्त्रस्य योनिः इति शास्त्रयोनिः षष्ठी तत्पुरुषसमासः इति एकम् अर्थम् उक्तवान् भाष्यकारः। शास्त्रस्य योनिः इत्युक्ते महतः ऋग्वेदादेः शास्त्रस्य, शास्त्रं नाम ऋग्वेदादिवेदः, महतः ऋग्वेदादेः शास्त्रस्य अनेक विद्यास्थान उपबिंहृतस्य प्रदीपवत् सर्वार्थ अवद्योतिनः सर्वज्ञकल्पस्य योनिः कारणं ब्रह्म इति उक्तम् भाष्यकारेण। किमर्थम् एवम् उक्तम् इदानीम् उच्यते। महान् शास्त्रं किमर्थं? ऋग्वेदादिः शास्त्रं किमर्थं? चातुर्वर्ण्यस्य चातुराश्रम्यस्य च यथा यथा निषेकादिश्मशानान्तासु ब्राह्म मुहूर्त उपक्रम प्रदोष परिसमापनीयासु नित्य नैमित्तिक काम्यकर्म पद्धतिषु च ब्रह्मत्वे शिष्याणां शासनात् ऋग्वेदादि शास्त्रम् इति उच्यते। महाविषयत्वाच्च महतः ऋग्वेदादेः शास्त्रस्य न केवलं महाविषयत्वेन अस्य महत्वम् अपितु अनेक विद्यास्थान उपबिंहृतस्य नाम अंग उपांगेन युक्तत्वादपि अस्य महत्वम्। अंगम नाम अंग शब्देन अत्र शिक्षादि वेदांगानां ग्रहणं कर्तव्यम्। उपांगेन पुराण न्याय मीमांसा धर्मशास्त्राणां ग्रहणम्। वेदस्वरूप तदर्थ निर्णयेन शिक्षादि षडंगानाम् उपयोगिता। सृष्टिवाक्यापेक्षित सर्गादि विवरणेन पुराणस्य जाति व्यक्ति प्रमाणादि स्वरूप निर्णयेन न्यायशास्त्रस्य वेदवाक्यार्थ निर्णय उपयोगी न्याय प्रदर्शनेन मीमांसाशास्त्रस्य वर्णाश्रमादि धर्म निरूपणेन धर्मशास्त्रस्य उपयोगिता। तया तया विद्यया उपकृतम् इत्यर्थः। एतेन समस्त शिष्टजन परिग्रहेण अप्रामाण्य शंका अपि अपाकृता। किमर्थं न पुराणादि प्रणेतारः हि महर्षयः शिष्टाः। तैः तया तया विद्यया वेदं व्याचक्षाणः तदर्थं च आदरेण अनुतिष्ठद्भिः परिगृहीतो वेदः। न च अयं वेदः अनवबोधकः नापि अस्पष्टबोधकः। तस्मात् उक्तं प्रदीपवत् सर्व अर्थ अवद्योतिनः इति। प्रदीपस्य समीपे विद्यमानाः सर्वेपि अर्थाः प्रदीप आलोकेन यथा परिस्फुटाः भवन्ति तथैव वेदेन प्रतिपाद्याः विषयाः अर्थाश्च परिस्फुटाः एव। अतएव सर्वज्ञ कल्पः। सर्वज्ञ सर्वं जानाति, सर्वस्य सर्वज्ञस्य ज्ञानं सर्वविषयं, शास्त्रस्यापि अभिधानं सर्वविषयम् इति अनयोः सादृश्यमस्ति। सर्वज्ञानाकरः सन्नपि यतो हि अयम् इदम् अचेतनं शास्त्रं तस्मात् सर्वज्ञ कल्पः सर्वज्ञ सदृशम् इति उक्तम्। तादृशी योनिः, योनिः नाम उपादान कारणं। व्याख्यायां किम् उक्तं? योनिः कारणं ब्रह्म। योनिः इत्युक्ते उपादान कारणं, कारणम् इत्युक्ते निमित्त कारणं, कर्ता ब्रह्म। एवं तेन प्रतिपादितम्। एवं अन्वयमुखेन प्रतिपादनात् परं व्यतिरेकेन प्रतिपादयति। किं? न हि ईदृशस्य शास्त्रस्य ऋग्वेदादिलक्षणस्य सर्वगुणान्वितस्य सर्वज्ञात् अन्यतः संभवः अस्ति। नाम एवं विचित्र सर्वविषय समन्वितं शास्त्रं सर्वज्ञम् अतिरिच्य न हि कश्चित् अन्यः साधयितुं शक्नोति। किमर्थम् उच्यते एवं? यत् शास्त्रं यः रचयति स्वाभाविकतया ततः सः अधिकं जानाति, अधिकज्ञानवान् भवति इति स्वीकरणीयं भवति। यतो हि एवं केचन विषयाः सन्ति ये अनुभववेद्याः परन्तु प्रकाशयितुम् अयोग्याः, शब्देन प्रकाशयितुं न शक्यते। इक्षुक्षीरगुडादीनां मधुररसभेदाः सरस्वत्या अपि प्रकाशयितुं न शक्याः। मधुरं सर्वमपि मधुरं, परन्तु एतेषु कः भेदः इति प्रकाशयितुं न शक्यते। परन्तु बृहदारण्यकोपनिषदि किम् उक्तम्? अस्य महतो भूतस्य निश्वसितम् एतद्यद् ऋग्वेदो यजुर्वेद। एवं एतेन अनेक शाखाभेद भिन्नस्य देवतिर्यं मनुष्य वर्णाश्रमादि प्रविभाग हेतोः ऋग्वेदाद्याख्यस्य सर्वज्ञानाकरस्य अप्रयत्नेन एव नाम लीलया एव पुरुषनिश्वासवत् यस्मात् महतः भूतात् योनेः संभवः तस्य महतः भूतस्य निरतिशय सर्वज्ञत्व सर्वशक्तिमत्व विषये किं वा वक्तव्यं? नाम सर्वज्ञं विना एवं कर्तुं न कश्चित् शक्नोति। एवं शास्त्रयोनि शब्दस्य द्वितीयः अर्थस्तावत् शास्त्रम् एव योनिः यस्य तत् इति बहुब्रीहि समासः। नाम ऋग्वेदादिशास्त्रं योनिः कारणं, कारणं नाम प्रमाणं, यथावत् स्वरूप अधिगमे ब्रह्मणः यस्य ब्रह्मणः तत् शास्त्रयोनि इति। शास्त्ररूप प्रमाणात् एव जगतः जन्मादि कारणं ब्रह्म इति अधिगम्यते। निर्गुणं निष्कलुषं ब्रह्म न प्रत्यक्षेन न वा अनुमित्य साधयितुं शक्यते। किमर्थं? प्रत्यक्षे कर्ण अपाटपादि साधारण पुरुष दोषाः संभवन्ति न वा अनुमानेन किमर्थं न एकेन प्रतिपादितम् अनुमानम् अपरेण खण्डितत्वात् एवं कृते अनवस्था प्रसंगः स्यात् तस्मात् दोषरहितत्वात् अपौरुषेयं शास्त्रं ब्रह्मणः स्वरूपाधिगमे इष्टं प्रमाणं भवति। तथा हि यतो वै इमानि भूतानि जायन्ते इत्यादि तैत्तिरीयश्रुतिभिः ब्रह्मणः जगत्कारणत्वं ज्ञायते। अत्र प्रश्नः भवितुमर्हति द्वितीय अधिकरणे जगतः जगज्जन्मादि कारणत्वम् उक्त्वा शास्त्रयोनित्वं प्रदर्शितं खलु तत्र पुनः अस्य अधिकरणस्य का उपयोगिता? अत्र उच्यते पूर्वसूत्रेण स्पष्टं शास्त्रस्य अनुपादानात् तत्र शास्त्र इति पदस्य उपादानं नास्ति तस्मात् जन्मादिसूत्रेण ब्रह्मणः प्रमाणान्तरगम्यत्वं कश्चित् आशङ्क्येत नाम अनुमानादि प्रमाणेनापि ब्रह्म साधयितुं शक्यते इति कश्चित् आशङ्क्येत ताम् आशङ्कां निवर्तयितुम् एव अस्मिन् अधिकरणे ब्रह्मणः शास्त्रगम्यत्वम् एव उदाहरणपुरस्सरं सप्रमाणं दृढीकृतम् इत्युक्त्वा सर्वेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Sincere thanks to Saibal Acharya. This creation is the manifestation of Brahma, Supreme Brahma. He has tried to explain, as Shankaracharya explained in the third sutra of Brahma Sutra, Shastrayonitvat, that this creation is manifestation of Brahma. This can be known only through the Shastras. It cannot be perceived through the senses. It cannot be logically inferred. So this is what he was trying to explain here. Now I request Subhadeep Das. So he will be speaking on jñānāgniḥ sarvakamāṇi bhasmasāt kurute.
ओम नमो भगवते रामकृष्णाय। नमः सभाभ्यः। अद्य मम भाषण विषयः ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते इति भगवदुक्तेः तात्पर्य निरूपणम्। वासुदेव मुखनिसृतायाः श्रीमद् भगवद्गीतायाः ज्ञान कर्म संन्यास योगाख्ये चतुर्थाध्याये तत्त्वदर्शिभिः आचार्यैः उपदिश्यमानं निखिल संसार बंध विनाश हेतुभूतं ज्ञानं सफलं विचारितं। तत्र ज्ञानस्य माहात्म्यं वर्णयता तस्य सर्व पाप विनाशकत्वं भगवता प्रतिपादितम्। अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः इत्यादि श्लोकेन। सर्वेभ्यः पापकारिभ्यः यः अतिशयेन पापकारी तस्यापि पापानि इदं ज्ञानं नाशयति इति ज्ञानस्य माहात्म्यम् अस्मिन् श्लोके वर्णितम्। इदमत्र अवधेयम् अध्यात्मशास्त्रे पापशब्देन धर्माधर्मौ उभौ अपि ग्राह्यौ मुमुक्षोः धर्मस्यापि पापत्वात्। तेन धर्मानुष्ठातॄणां ज्ञानेन अधर्मनाशेपि धर्मरूपप्रतिबन्धकसत्वात् मोक्षः न सम्भवति इति शङ्का न कार्या। एवं ज्ञानेन धर्माधर्मयोः उभयोः निवृत्तिर्भवति इति प्राप्तम्। इदं ज्ञानस्य धर्माधर्म विनाशकत्वं सदृष्टान्तं प्रतिपिपादयिषन् आह भगवान् वासुदेवः यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निर्भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा। यथा प्रदीप्तः अग्निः काष्ठानि भस्मीभूतानि करोति तथा ज्ञानं सर्वाणि कर्माणि भस्मीभूतानि करोति इति श्लोकार्थः। अत्रायं विशेषः यथा अग्नेः दाहकत्वं काष्ठानाञ्च तद्दाह्यत्वं सम्भवतः तथा ज्ञानस्य दाहकत्वं कर्मणाञ्च तद्दाह्यत्वं न सम्भवतः। तस्मात् दार्ष्टान्तिके दाहशब्दस्य निर्वीजीकरणम् इत्यर्थः स्वीकर्तव्यः। यथा लौकिकज्ञानं स्वप्रमेय आवरण अज्ञानं निवर्तयति तथा प्रकृतमिदं ब्रह्मात्मविज्ञानमपि अज्ञानं निवर्तयत् तज्जन्यं कर्तृत्वभ्रमं निवर्तयति। अयमेव कर्तृत्वभ्रमः सर्वेषां कर्मणां बीजभूतः। अतः तस्य निराकरणेन कर्मणां निर्वीजीकरणम् एव जातम् इत्याशयः। एवं ज्ञानेन सर्वेषामपि कर्मणां समूलं नाशः भवति इति प्राप्तम्। अत्रैव काचित् शङ्का समुदेति। ननु सर्वकर्म हेतुभूतस्य कर्तृत्वभ्रमस्य नाशे येन कर्मणा विदुषः शरीरमारब्धं तस्यापि कर्मणः नाशः भवति इति ज्ञानोदय समकालमेव शरीरपातः स्यात्। तदा तत्त्वदर्शिनाम् आचार्याणाम् एव अभावात् तत्त्वदर्शिभिः उपदिष्टं ज्ञानं सफलमिति भगवद्वचनम्। आचार्यवान् पुरुषो वेद इत्यादि श्रुतिवचनञ्च नोपपद्येते। किञ्च आचार्याभावे ज्ञानानुत्पत्तौ ज्ञानात् मोक्षः इति शास्त्रमपि अप्रमाणं स्यात्। ननु ज्ञानात् मोक्षः सर्वेषां न भवति, केषाञ्चिदेव सः भवति। येषां न भवति तेषामेव आचार्यत्वमिति न आचार्याभावः इति चेत् न। नियतफलत्वात् ज्ञानस्य केषाञ्चित् ज्ञानफलं लभ्यते केषाञ्चित् न लभ्यते इति वक्तुं न शक्यते। किञ्च कस्यचित् ज्ञानात् मोक्षः कस्यचित् न इति स्वीकृते सति ज्ञानस्य अनियतफलत्वेन न कश्चित् मोक्षाय प्रवर्तेत। तस्मात् ज्ञानेन सर्वकर्मनाशः सम्भवात् ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते इति भगवता यदुक्तं तद् अनुपपन्नं प्रतिभाति। एताम् आपाततः प्रतिभासमानाम् अनुपपत्तिं निरसयितु कामाः सिद्धान्तिनः कर्मसु कानिचित् प्रवृत्तफलानि कानिचित् अप्रवृत्तफलानि इति कर्मणां द्वैविध्यं प्रतिपादयन्ति। तत्र यानि कर्माणि जन्मान्तरेषु सञ्चितानि तथा अस्मिन् जन्मनि ब्रह्मज्ञानोत्पत्तेः प्राक् सञ्चितानि तथा ज्ञानाभ्यासकाले कृतानि गुरुसेवादिरूपाणि तानि सर्वाण्यपि कर्माणि प्रवृत्तफलानि ब्रह्मज्ञानेनैव विनाशं प्राप्नुवन्ति। किन्तु येषां कर्मणां फलभोगः समारब्धः यैश्च ब्रह्मज्ञानाश्रयोऽयं देहः निर्मितः तेषां प्रवृत्तफलानां कर्मणां विनाशः भोगेनैव भवति। तस्य तावदेव चिरं यावन्न विमोक्ष्ये अथ सम्पत्स्ये इत्यादि श्रुतेः। तस्य उत्पन्नविद्यस्य पुरुषस्य तावदेव चिरं विलम्बः यावन्न विमोक्ष्ये शरीरपातो न स्यात् अथ शरीरपातानन्तरं सम्पत्स्ये ब्रह्म भवति इति श्रुत्यर्थः। अत्र विद्योत्पत्ति सत्सम्पत्त्योर्मध्ये विलम्बस्य उक्तत्वात् तच्छरीरारम्भकाणां प्रारब्धकर्मणां भोगं विना अनिवृत्तिर्गम्यते। नाभुक्तं क्षीयते कर्म इत्यादि स्मृतयः अपि प्रारब्धकर्म एव विषयीकुर्वन्त्यः तस्य भोगं विना नाशाभावं बोधयन्ति। तस्मात् यथा चापात् लक्ष्यं प्रति निर्गतः शरः मध्ये न निवर्तते लक्ष्यं प्राप्यैव निर्व्यापारो भवति तथा प्रारब्धं कर्म यावत् देहपातं न निवर्तते। किन्तु यथा तूणस्थाः अथवा धनुषि संयोजिता अपि अप्रयुक्ताः शराः लक्ष्यप्राप्तिं विना निवर्तयितुं शक्यन्ते तथा सञ्चितान्यपि कर्माणि भोगप्रदानं विना ज्ञानेन नाशयितुं शक्यन्ते। ननु अग्निना बीजानां सम्बन्धे सति केषाञ्चित् बीजानाम् अंकुरोत्पादिका शक्तिर्नश्यति केषाञ्चित् न नश्यति इति यथा स्वीकर्तुं न शक्यते तथा ब्रह्मज्ञानं कानिचित् कर्माणि नाशयति कानिचित् न नाशयति इत्यपि स्वीकर्तुं न शक्यते इति चेदुच्यते। यथा सकलान्धकारनिवर्तनसमर्थोऽपि सविता अपवरकप्रतिबन्धात् तदाश्रयम् अन्धकारलेशं न नाशयति तथा सकलसंसारबीजभूत अज्ञाननिवर्तनसमर्थोऽपि ब्रह्मज्ञानदिवाकरः प्रवृत्तफलकर्मप्रतिबन्धात् तत्सम्पादकम् अज्ञानलेशं न नाशयति। तस्मात् प्रारब्धकर्मणां भोगेनैव क्षयात् ज्ञानोदयात् शरीरपातं यावत् विदुषां स्थितेः तत्त्वदर्शिनः आचार्याः समुपलभ्यन्ते। तेन उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः इति भगवद्वचनं तथा आचार्यवान् पुरुषो वेद इत्यादि श्रुतिवचनं च उपपद्येते। तथा ज्ञानात् मोक्षः इति शास्त्रस्यापि अप्रामाण्याशङ्का निवर्तते। किञ्च यस्य कर्मणः फलभोगः समारब्धः तदनाश्रित्य ब्रह्मज्ञानोत्पत्तिः नोपपद्यते। यतोहि तस्य कर्मणः ब्रह्म ज्ञानं प्रति हेतुत्वं वर्तते। तस्मिन् च हेतुत्वे स्वीकृते यथा कुलालचक्रस्य वेगः प्रवृत्तश्चेत् तस्य वेगक्षयं यावत् चक्रवेगः प्रवर्तते, तथा भोगः समारब्धश्चेत् तस्य क्षयं यावत् प्रारब्धकर्मणः वेगः प्रवर्तते। किंच ब्रह्मविदः स्वदृष्टौ अकर्तृस्वरूपं ब्रह्म अहमस्मीति ज्ञानं मिथ्याज्ञानस्य बाधेन सर्वाणि कर्माणि नाशयति चेदपि परदृष्टौ तद् बाधितमपि मिथ्याज्ञानं किञ्चित् कालम् अनुवर्तते। यथा उपदेशे कृतेपि बालकस्य द्विचन्द्रदर्शनं संस्कारवशात् किञ्चित् कालम् अनुवर्तते। किंच ब्रह्मविदा शरीरधारणं क्रियते न वा इत्यस्मिन् विषये विवादः न कर्तव्यः। यतोहि एकस्य हृदये प्रतीयमानं ब्रह्मविज्ञानं शरीरधारणं वा अन्येन कथं प्रत्याख्यातुं शक्येत। शास्त्रेष्वपि स्थितप्रज्ञ जीवन्मुक्तादिलक्षणनिर्देशः ब्रह्मविदः इदं शरीरधारणमेव दृढयति। तस्मात् सञ्चितानामेव कर्मणां ब्रह्मविज्ञानेन विनाशः न तु प्रारब्धानाम् इति सिद्धान्तः। इत्थं प्रारब्धकर्मणां भोगं विना क्षयायोगात् ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते इति भगवत् उक्तौ सर्वशब्दार्थः संकोचयितव्यः। तेन ज्ञानरूपाग्निः सर्वाणि कर्माणि न भस्मसात् कुरुते, अपि तु प्रारब्धकर्माणि विहाय अन्यानि यानि कर्माणि सन्ति तानि सर्वाण्यपि कर्माणि तद् बीजभूतस्य कर्तृत्वभमस्य निराकरणेन नाशयति इत्यर्थः अस्य श्लोकस्य ग्राह्यः। इत्युक्त्वा सर्वेभ्यः यथायोग्यं प्रणामादिकं विनिवेद्य अत्रैव स्ववाग्व्यापारात् विरमामि। नमो नमः।
Everyone is bound by their actions, both good and bad, in this world. And until we are leaving, we cannot get rid of actions. So, jñānāgniḥ sarvakamāṇi bhasmasāt kurute. This shloka, beautifully expounded by Shubhankar, he has tried to tell, or Subhadeep, he has tried to explain how jnanam will, or knowledge will clear all the actions, that is sanchita, deposited. And as a arrow that has been shot will not stop until the velocity is there. So the prarabdha karma will not be cleared by this jnanam until this body is destructed. So this was what he has tried to speak. Now I would request Shubhankar Das to present his paper on kṣetrakṣetrajñavimarśaḥ.
नमस्सभाभ्यः आचार्यभ्यश्च। अस्यानर्थहेतुप्रहाणाय आत्मैकत्वविद्या प्रतिपत्ते सर्वे वेदान्ताः प्रारभ्यन्ते इति श्रीशङ्करभगवत्पादानां वचनात् आत्मानात्मविवेकः आत्मैकत्वविज्ञानञ्च लक्ष्यं वर्तते अद्वैते। तदिदं लक्ष्यं त्रिष्वपि प्रस्थानेषु नैकत्र वर्णितं भगवत्पादैः। प्रसङ्गतः स्मार्तप्रस्थाने भगवद्गीताभाष्ये 13 क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविचारसमये तदिदं लक्ष्यं प्रतिपादितं। तच्च सारतः संक्षेपतश्च आलोच्यते प्रबन्धेऽस्मिन् प्रसङ्गेऽस्मिन्। तत्र क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविचारात् पूर्वं क्षेत्रविज्ञानम् आवश्यकम्। शतात्रायते इति व्युत्पत्त्या प्राप्यते शब्दोऽयं क्षेत्रशब्दोऽयम् अस्य च देहसङ्घातः इत्यर्थः। तत्र प्राप्यते वचनं भाष्ये शतत्राणात् क्षयात् शरणात् क्षेत्रवद्वा अस्मिन् कर्मफलनिर्वृत्ते क्षेत्रमिति। यद्यपि भोगायतनमिदं शरीरं तथापि अनेनैव शरीरेण ज्ञानोत्पादनेन नरकपादादिलक्षणादपि त्रायते। तस्मात् इदं शरीरं क्षेत्रम् इत्युच्यते। प्रतिपाद्यते च वचनमिदं भगवतः इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते इति। अस्य च क्षेत्रस्य के धर्मा इति श्लोकद्वयेन व्याख्यातं। तत्र आदौ तावत् महाभूतान्यहङ्कार इति श्लोकेन सांख्यैः यानि चतुर्विंशति तत्त्वानि इति उच्यते तानि वस्तुतः क्षेत्रस्यैव धर्मा इति व्याख्यातम्। तत्र तावत् पंच ज्ञानेन्द्रियाणि, पंच कर्मेन्द्रियाणि, पंच तन्मात्राणि, पंच इंद्रियगोचराः शब्दादय विषयाः, अंतःकरणं त्रयं मनः बुद्धि अहंकारः अव्यक्तम् इति चतुर्विंशति तत्त्वानि प्रख्यातानि। तानि तत्त्वानि वस्तुतः क्षेत्रस्यैव धर्मा इति व्याख्यातम्। अत्र संशयः जायते। तत्र पूर्वम् इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय इत्यत्र शरीरमेव क्षेत्रम् इत्युक्तम्। अत्र प्रकृते तत्त्वानि कथं शरीरे सङ्गच्छन्ते? अत्र समाधीयते यत् अद्वैते तावत् शरीरस्य त्रैविध्यं स्वीकृतं स्थूल सूक्ष्म कारणभेदेन। अत्र अव्यक्तं कारणशरीरं, पंचतन्मात्राणि, दशभूतानि, दश इन्द्रियाणि, किञ्च त्रिविधान्तःकरणं च सूक्ष्मशरीरं, स्थूल शब्दादीनि च स्थूल शरीरम् इति व्याख्यातम्। अपि च वैशेषिकैः भ्रान्त्या आत्मगुणाः इति ये स्वीकृता ते अपि क्षेत्रधर्मा एव इति व्याख्यातम्। इच्छाद्वेष सुखं दुःखम् इत्यादि श्लोकेन। तथा हि यज्जातीयं सुखहेतुम् आदातु पुनः इच्छति सा इच्छा, तद् विपरीतः द्वेषः। अनुकूलात्मकं सुखं प्रतिकूलात्मकं दुःखं, देहेन्द्रिय संहतिः संघातः, आत्मचैतन्याभास रसविद्धा अंतःकरणवृत्ति चेतना, यया अवसाद प्राप्तानि देहेन्द्रियाणि धीयते सा धृतिः इत्युच्यते। तेन पूर्वं चतुर्विंशति अत्र सप्त इति आहृत्य 31 धर्माः क्षेत्रस्य इति वर्णितम्। ईदृशं क्षेत्रं यः वेत्ति स एव क्षेत्रज्ञः इत्युच्यते। एतद् यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः इति भगवद्वचनेन। तत्र च क्षेत्रज्ञत्वं कथम् इत्यत्र प्रकारद्वयं प्राप्तम्। एकं तु आपादतलमस्तकं ज्ञानेन विषयीकरोति इति, द्वितीयं तु साधारणेन औपदेशिकेन वा ज्ञानेन विषयीकरोति इति च। प्रथमपक्षे तावत् शारीरस्य विभुत्वं प्रदर्शितं। तत्र अणोः सर्वशरीरव्यापी वेदना नोपलभ्यते, तस्मात् अयं शारीरी न अणुः। द्वितीये मध्यमपरिमाणकत्वं न, कुत इति चेत् मनुष्यशरीरस्य पापकर्मवशात् कीटादिजन्म तथा न संभवे, तस्मात् न मध्यमशरीरवत्वं। तेन शेषा विभुपरिमाणोऽयं शारीरी इति प्रमाणितं शारीरकभाष्येऽपि उत्क्रान्तिगत्यधिकरणे तद्गुणसारत्वात्तु इत्यादि सूत्रे। द्वितीये तु साधारणेन नाम अंतःकरणवृत्त्या, औपदेशिकेन नाम गुरोः आदेशेन वा अयं क्षेत्रज्ञः ज्ञातुं शक्यते इत्युक्तम्। अस्य च ज्ञानसाधनानि कानि इति प्रमाणितं परम् अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम् इत्यादि श्लोकेन। तथा हि अमानित्वादीनि आत्मविनिग्रहः, इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम्, अनहङ्कार इत्यादीनि साधनानि। अत्रैकः संशयो जायते। ब्रह्मणः अनिर्वाच्यत्वम् अद्वैतिभिः स्वीकृतं, परं अनिर्वाच्यत्वं नाम वाचा व्याकर्तुं न शक्येत। परन्तु प्रकृतेऽस्मिन् अध्याये क्षेत्रज्ञेति पदेन वाचितमेव तद् ब्रह्म, तेन सिद्धान्तहानिः जाता इति पूर्वपक्षिणां संशये सिद्धान्तितं स्वेन भगवत्पादेन। क्षेत्रज्ञश्च क्षेत्रोपाधितः उच्यते इति। तथा हि प्राप्यते न्यायोऽयम् अद्वैत संप्रदाये अध्यारोपापवादाभ्यां निष्प्रपञ्चं प्रपञ्चते इति। अत्र पूर्वं तावत् क्षेत्रवर्णनं विहितं, परं तं क्षेत्रं यः वेत्ति इति अध्यारोपेण क्षेत्रज्ञः वर्णितः। तस्माच्च प्राप्यते प्रमाणितं भवति वाक्यमिदं, सोऽयम् अध्यासरूपः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगः मिथ्याज्ञानलक्षणः इति। अस्य च अपवादो दर्शितः, न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते इति पदेन। अत्र संशयो जायते यत् अत्र उक्तं ब्रह्म न सत् न असत् इति। एकं सद् भवेत् अपरं वा असद् भवेत्, उभयविलक्षणं कथं सम्भवति इति समाहितं भाष्यकारे यत् अत्र न सत् इत्यत्र पक्षद्वयं वर्तते। प्रथमं तावत् जातिगुणक्रियादिमत्वं सत्वमिति स्वीक्रियते। ब्रह्मणः तथा जात्याद्यपेक्षा नास्ति, तस्मात् ब्रह्म न सत्। द्वितीये तु सद्वस्तुनः अस्ति प्रत्ययगोचरता वा स्यात् नास्ति प्रत्ययगोचरता वा स्यात्, यथा घटोऽस्ति इति ज्ञानं। प्रकृते तु ब्रह्मणः अतीन्द्रियत्वं स्वीकृतम्, अप्राणो ह्यमना शुभ्रः इत्यादि श्रुत्या। तेन अतीन्द्रियस्य अस्ति नास्ति उभय प्रत्यय गोचरता न वर्तते तेन ब्रह्म न सत् इति प्रतिपादितम्। कथं च न असत् इत्यत्रापि प्रकारद्वयं वर्तते। प्रथमं तावत् असतः अलीकत्वम् इति प्रसिद्धिः। अलीकस्य च शशशृङ्गादेन न सद्वस्तुवद्भानं न च अध्यासेनापि प्रतिभानं सम्भवति यथा शुक्तिरूप्यादीनां सम्भवति। तेन अपरत्र ब्रह्मणस्तु नित्यत्वं से साधितं नित्यत्वं च त्रिकालाबाधितत्वं तेन ब्रह्म न असत् इति प्रतिपादितं। प्रकारद्वये च अद्वैते प्रपंच मिथ्यात्व प्रसंगे अध्यास निरूपण प्रसंगे च अध्यासस्य सदधिष्ठानत्वं स्वीक्रियते। तस्मादि प्रतिपाद्यते वाक्यमिदं अध्यास तत्व साक्षात्कारेण मिथ्या निवर्तते इति। यदि अत्र ब्रह्म असदिति स्वीक्रियेत तर्हि तस्य मिथ्या प्रपंच मिथ्यात्व प्रसंगे अधिष्ठानत्वं न स्यात्। यदि ब्रह्मणः अधिष्ठानत्वं न स्यात् तर्हि ब्रह्मान्तरं किमपि अधिष्ठानं भवितुं नार्हति प्रपञ्चस्य। एवं च स्थिते प्रपञ्चस्यापि मिथ्यात्वं प्रतिपादयितुं न शक्येत। तस्मात् उभयथापि ब्रह्म न सत् न च असत् इति प्रतिपद्यते। इत्थं विज्ञानेन किं फलं भवति इति चेत् प्रतिपादितम् अस्य एवं वेत्ति इत्यादि श्लोकैः। तथा हि आत्मविज्ञानस्य पुनः जन्मलाभो न भवति। अत्र संशयः जायते प्राक्तनैः अयं विषयः बहुधा व्याख्यातः वर्तते केवलं साररूपेण उच्यते। तत्र कर्मफलद्वयं भवति। कर्मफल अयं भवति प्रारब्धं संचितं क्रियमाणमिति। संचितक्रियमाणयोः नाशो भवति प्रारब्धं तु भोगेन नश्यति। तस्मात् प्रतिपाद्यते श्रुतिरिदं विमुक्तश्च विमुच्यते। अपराधश्रुतिः तस्य तावदेव चिरं यावन्न विमोक्षे अथ सम्पत्स्ये। इत्थञ्च तदधिगमाधिकरणे शारीरकभाष्येऽपि प्रतिपादितम्। अतएव लोके दृश्यते ब्रह्मविदामपि शारीरिकी व्याधिः। इत्थं विज्ञानेन कीदृशः अनुभवः इति चेत् प्रतिपादितं समं सर्वेषु भूतेषु इति। तथा हि ब्रह्मादिस्थावरान्तयेषु सर्वेषु भूतेषु समत्वदृष्टिः भवति तस्य। इत्थं च समत्वदृष्टिः यदा भवति तदा जगत् तस्य मिथ्या प्रतीयते परन्तु ब्रह्मैव सर्वत्र भासते इत्यपि निश्चीयते। तस्य न हिंसा न च रागः न च कस्मिंश्चित् कर्मणि तस्य लेपः सम्भवति। इत्थं क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञ विवेकेन आत्मानात्म विवेकः वर्णितः भगवता भगवत्पादैश्च स्मार्तप्रस्थाने प्रस्थानान्तरे च इत्युक्त्वा सर्वेभ्यः यथा योग्यं प्रणामादिकं समर्प्य अत्रैवाहं स्ववाग्व्यापारात् विरमामि। नमः सर्वेभ्यः।
पंच ज्ञानेन्द्रिय, पंच कर्मेन्द्रिय, पंच तन्मात्र, पंच महाभूत, and 3 antakaranās, mana, buddhi, ahankara, and the moola prakriti. These 24 compounds of this world is called kshetram, and our body is the manifestation of these 24 tattvas. And inside this body, in the Hridaya Pundarika, Paramatma resides. So he is called Kshetrajña. And knowing this Kshetrajña, we can get liberated from this world. That was what he was telling. Now I would like to request Dr. Venkataramana Bhat, distinguished faculty of our department, and Ashtavadhani, to speak on śrotavyo, mantavyo, nididhyāsitavyaḥ.
गुरुदेवो गणेशश्च वाणी च साधवस्तथा अन्तस्थं दैवमाराध्यं सर्वं मे अत्रिनन्दनः। गुरवे नमः। समागतेभ्यः पूज्येभ्यः महाराजेभ्यः मम सश्रद्धाः प्रणामाः। ये च अतिथयः पूज्याः समागताः तेभ्यः अपि आत्मीयं स्वागतम्। अन्ये च अस्माकम् आत्मीयाः अध्यापकाः छात्राः। ते यदि इच्छन्ति तर्हि स्वागतमुच्यते। शब्दे का वचने का दरिद्रता इति। महाराजस्य वाक्यं यद्यपि श्रोतव्यमस्माभिः, तेन कारणेन अन्ये अन्येपि अत्र समागताः सन्ति, के अद्य मध्ये समागत्य विघ्नम् उत्पादयन्ति इति। विघ्न आधिक्यं मङ्गलम् अल्पं कृतम्। सूर्योदयः भविष्यति, तस्य वेषः अपि तथा अस्ति। ततः पूर्वम् अयं पक्षिकोलाहलः कश्चित् श्रूयते। सूर्योदयादनन्तरं दिवसः। विषयः अत्र प्रदत्तः अस्ति, श्रोतव्यः मन्तव्यः निदिध्यासितव्यः इति। बृहदारण्यके एतत् सुप्रसिद्धं वाक्यं द्योतते, सर्वे प्रायः जानन्ति। आत्मसाधनस्य उपायाः अत्र वर्णिताः सन्ति। प्रकरणमपि सर्वैः प्रायः ज्ञायते इति कृत्वा तत्र अहं वक्तुं तथा उत्साहं न प्रदर्शयामि। विषयः महान् अस्ति, कालोऽपि अल्पः अस्ति, अहमपि बालः। प्रकरणमित्थमस्ति। मैत्रेयी याज्ञवल्क्यं पृच्छति, अमृतत्वप्राप्तेः साधनं यत् भवता ज्ञायते तत् मामपि ब्रूहि भगवन् इति। तदा प्रियं पृष्टं त्वया इति सुप्रीतः सः गुरुस्थानीयः पतिः, स्त्रीणामपि पतिरेव महान् इति अस्ति अस्माकं शास्त्रसम्प्रदायः, तद्रीत्यापि तत्र तथा सङ्गच्छते। अमृतत्वस्य साधनं किम् इति, वित्तेन स्याद्वा इत्यादिकं पूर्वं सा पृष्टवती। अमृतत्वस्य तु नाशास्ति वित्तेन इत्यादिकं तत्र उक्तं। धन इत्यादि लौकिकवस्तुभिः अमृतत्वलाभः नास्ति इति याज्ञवल्क्यः स्पष्टीकृतवान्। धनिकादीनां जीवनं यथा स्यात् तादृशं जीवनं तु सम्पन्नं स्यात् वित्तेन। भाष्यकारे तत्र वित्तेन नाम वित्तसाध्येन कर्मणा इति लिख्यते। तस्य च कश्चित् भिन्नः अर्थः अस्ति, सः अर्थः सम्प्रति मास्तु। तत्र अमृतत्वं प्राप्तुं याज्ञवल्क्येन उक्तं, तत्र आत्मा एव साक्षात् कर्तव्यः, येन अमृतत्वं प्राप्तं भवति। सहोवाच न वा अरे पत्युः कामाय पतिः प्रियो भवति आत्मनस्तु कामाय इत्येव मन्त्रः प्रारभ्यते। न वा अरे जायायै कामाय जाया प्रिया भवति, न वा अरे पुत्राणां कामाय पुत्राः प्रिया भवन्ति, न वा अरे वित्तस्य कामाय वित्तं प्रियं भवति इत्येवं वेदः, देवाः, लोकाः इत्यादीनाम् उल्लेखः क्रियते। एतस्य अर्थः अपि प्रायः सर्वैः छात्रैः ज्ञायते। लौकिकं यत्किञ्चित् वस्तु अस्मत् प्रीतिपात्रम् इति यद्भवति तत् वस्तुनः कृते तत् न प्रीतिपात्रं, तत् अस्माकं कृते आवश्यकम् इति कारणात् प्रीतिपात्रम् इति। तस्मात् अन्ते कथयति आत्मा एव प्रियतमः, यतोहि सर्वमेव वस्तु आत्मनः कृते प्रीतिपात्रत्वं भजते। तर्हि आत्मा एव प्रियतमः इति स्थितं, येन आत्मा एव ज्ञातव्यः इति युक्त्या प्रदर्शयति याज्ञवल्क्यः। आत्मनः ज्ञानेन सर्वमेव ज्ञातं भवति इत्यपि शास्त्रस्य ज्ञानिनाञ्च मतम् अस्ति। तस्मात् तेन उक्तम् आत्मा वा अरे द्रष्टव्यः। द्रष्टव्यः द्रष्टव्यः नाम कोऽर्थः, साक्षात् कर्तव्यः इत्यर्थः। साक्षात्कारश्च किमर्थकः? स्वानुभव आरूढ़ ज्ञानार्थकः। बुद्धिवृत्त्यात्मक ज्ञानं भिन्नम्, आत्मानुभवात्मक ज्ञानं भिन्नम्। लोके च यत् ज्ञानशब्दवाच्यं तत् पूर्णतया बुद्धिवृत्त्यात्मकम्, अन्तःकरणवृत्त्यात्मकम्, तत् ज्ञानं भिन्नम्। एवं आत्मानुभव ज्ञान विषयी कर्तव्यः आत्मा। आत्मा साक्षात् कर्तव्यः इति अन्यत्रापि श्रुतौ तथा अस्ति। सोऽन्वेष्टव्यः विजिज्ञासितव्यः आत्मा, अपहतपाप्मा इत्यादि लक्षणः आत्मा सः ज्ञातव्यः। ओमिति ध्यायथ आत्मानं। तर्हि कीदृश आत्मा ज्ञातव्यः इति चेत् नाम रूपाद्युपाधियुक्तः यः इदानीं लौकिकः आत्मा भूतात्मा परिचीयते अस्माभिः, अहमीदृशः अस्मि इति, तादृशः आत्मा न साक्षात् कर्तव्यः। तर्हि कीदृशः आत्मा? यथा मुण्डके उक्तं, न माण्डुक्ये अस्ति, जागृदुपाधिकः यः विश्वः, स्वप्नोपाधिकः यः तैजसः, सुषुप्त्युपाधिकः यः प्राज्ञः, अयञ्च जीवात्मा, सः साक्षात् कर्तव्यत्वेन नोपदिष्टः। उपदिष्टश्च अन्ते। प्रपञ्चोपशमं शान्तं शिवम् अद्वैतं चतुर्थं मन्यन्ते स आत्मा सविज्ञेयः। तर्हि जागृदादि अवस्थासु स्थितः यः जीवः सः साक्षात् कर्तव्यत्वेन श्रुतेः सम्मतः नास्ति। अपि च बादरायण सूत्रभाष्येपि भाष्यकारैः परमेश्वरात्मक एव आत्मा ज्ञातव्यः इत्युक्तं। श्रोतव्यो तत्र द्रष्टव्यः नाम कीदृशः आत्मा इति चेत् परमेश्वरात्मकः आत्मा द्रष्टव्यः इत्येव इति जाबाल श्रुतिवाक्यमुद्धृत्य उक्तमस्ति। एवम् अयमात्मा साक्षात् कर्तव्यः येन अस्माकम् अमृतत्वलाभः अस्ति। एवं स्थिते आत्मप्राप्तेः, तादृश आत्मप्राप्तेः उपायः कः इति प्रश्नो भवति। सामान्यैस्तु इत्थं प्रश्नः क्रियेत, अहं तु मां जानामि, मैत्रः चैत्रः अस्मि, स्थूलः कृशः युवा वृद्धः ब्रह्मचारी यतिः गृहस्थः इत्येवम् अहं मां जानामि, किं पुनः आत्मज्ञानमवशिष्टम्? अयं परिचयः फेक् परिचयः, फेक् एड्रेस्। तर्हि एतत् एड्रेस् त्यक्तव्यं किं? बिल्कुल् त्यक्तव्यम्। त्यक्तव्यमेतत्। यदि अमृतत्वमिष्यते तर्हि त्यक्तव्यम्। अत एव ज्ञानस्य लक्षणे कृष्णेन अमानित्वम् इति प्रथमम् उक्तम्। मान एव समस्तजीवभावस्य आधारः, अभिमानः। अभिमानो अहङ्कारः, अहङ्कारविमूढात्मा कर्ता अहमिति मन्यते। तर्हि लोकपरिचितः आत्मा न द्रष्टव्यः। तर्हि अस्माकं परिचयः, ओरिजिनल् एड्रेस् कुत्र अस्ति? शास्त्रे अस्ति। तर्हि शास्त्रे किम् अन्वेषणं कर्तव्यम् इति चेत् सत्यं। तत्र आत्मप्राप्तेः प्रथमोपायः अस्ति श्रोतव्यः। श्रवणं कर्तव्यमिति साधारणः अर्थः। तस्य च अर्थं विवृणोति भाष्यकारः भगवान् शङ्कराचार्यः। श्रोतव्यः पूर्वम् आचार्यतः आगमतश्च इति। आत्मानम् अधिकृत्य श्रवणं कर्तव्यम् अस्माभिः। श्रवणं कीदृशम् इति चेत् आचार्य मुखात् शास्त्रम् अनुसृत्य आत्मनः श्रवणं कर्तव्यं। मम परिचयः वस्तुतः ईदृशः अस्ति इति। यत् वयं छान्दोग्ये 6 पठामः गान्धारदेशदृष्टान्ते। परमकारुणिकः सः स्वयं मुक्तबन्धनः गुरुः नासित्वं नाम रूपाद्युपाधियुक्तः इति बोधयति तम्। तर्हि नाम रूपाद्युपाधियुक्तः या आत्मा सः न विवक्षितः, शास्त्रप्रतिपादितः आत्मा अत्र विवक्षितः। तस्मात् आत्मस्वरूपं शास्त्रतः श्रोतव्यम्। तत्र आचार्योऽप्युपस्थापितः भाष्यकारैः। आचार्यं विना शास्त्रस्य अर्थानाम् इयत्ता ज्ञानं न भवति। एवं अत्र अर्थः ग्राह्यः, अयं शब्दः स्थितोपि अत्र एवम् अर्थः इत्येवम् आचार्यो जानाति। आचार्यश्च कः? गुरुः, गुरुश्च ब्रह्मवित्। यः स्वयं ब्रह्मानुभवी स एव आचार्यशब्दवाच्यः वेदान्ते। अस्मदादयः ये सन्ति वयं गौणाः आचार्याः। यः आचारयितुं समर्थः, अतएव आचार्यस्य लक्षणे वक्तव्ये आचारे स्थापयत्यपि वयं राम राम इति प्रत्ययं जपतु इति ब्रूमश्चेत् कोऽपि न जपति, किन्तु आचार्यश्चेत् स्वयं जपं चालयति सः शिष्ये। तत् अस्य सामर्थ्यम्। अयं सद्गुरु इत्यादि शब्दैः लौकिकैर्व्यवह्रियते। अयम् आचार्यः, सः अस्य वाक्यस्य अयमर्थः इति वक्तुं समर्थः। तादृश आचार्यमुखात् आत्मनः श्रवणं शास्त्रमाध्यमेन प्राप्तव्यम् इति स्थितम्। अयं प्रथमः आत्मप्राप्तेः उपायः। द्वितीयोपायः अस्ति मननं, मन्तव्यः इति तत्र मन्त्रवाक्ये। आत्मा मन्तव्यः अर्थात् आत्मनः अधिकृते श्रवणं कृतं तस्य मननं कर्तव्यम् इति सरलार्थः। मनने कर्तव्ये तत्र किमस्ति? शङ्कराचार्ये भाष्ये लिख्यते पश्चात् मन्तव्यः तर्कतः इति। तर्कतः मननं कर्तव्यम्। मादृशानां चित्ते यथा अर्थस्फूर्तिः स्यात् तथा अर्थः भाष्यकाराणां मनसि स्फूर्तमासीत्। न अनेन मिषेण शुष्कस्य तर्कस्य आत्मलाभः। तर्हि तर्केण आत्मनः मननं कर्तव्यम्। तर्कशब्दस्य कोऽर्थः? साधारणार्थः युक्तिः, उपपत्तिः, समर्थनवाक्यम् इत्यर्थः। उदाहरणं, दृष्टान्तः, एतत् सर्वमपि युक्तौ अन्तर्भवति, तर्के अन्तर्भवति। शारीरकभाष्ये शङ्कराचार्ये स्पष्टीकृतं मन्तव्यः तर्कतः इत्युक्तम् एतत् निमित्तं स्वीकृत्य शुष्कः तर्कः यः लोके प्रसिद्धः अस्ति सः अत्र स्थानं न प्राप्नोति। एवं मादृशानां चित्ते यत् स्फुरति तत् अवश्यं भाष्यकाराणां मनसि आसीत्, तस्मात् तत्र जागृतिं प्रदर्शयन्ति। यतोहि भयङ्करमार्गः अस्ति शास्त्रमार्गः। नानुध्यायेत् बहून् शब्दान् वाचो विग्लापनं हि तत्। घटो वा मृत्पिण्डो प्यणुरपि च धूमोऽग्निरचलः पटो वा तन्तुर्वा इति शिवानंद लहरी स्तोत्रे द्वितीय श्लोकः अस्ति। एवं ज्ञापितं तैः तथा ज्ञापयित्वा उक्तं ते अनुकम्पनीयाः कुतर्कदूषितान्तःकरणाः अनुकम्पनीयाः शास्त्र संप्रदाय विरुद्धाः इति भाष्यवाक्यमस्ति। एवं तैरुक्तं। तर्हि तर्कः कः? श्रुत्यनुगृहीतः तर्कः अनुभवाङ्गत्वेन आश्रियते इति उक्तं। यः श्रुति अर्थ समर्थकः, श्रुति अविरुद्धः तर्कः सः आश्रयणीयः। तर्कश्च शास्त्रेषु सर्वत्र दृश्यते। यथा सौम्य एकेन मृत्पिण्डेन सर्वमिदं ज्ञातं भवति इत्येवं। मृत्पिण्डम् एकं जानाति चेत् सर्वं मृण्मयमेव ज्ञातं भवति, एषा युक्तिः। नद्यः यथा सागरे अस्थं प्राप्नुवन्ति तदा नाम रूपाणि त्यक्त्वा एव अस्थं गच्छन्ति इति तर्कः। तर्केण शास्त्रार्थः मनसि सम्यक् दृढीभवति। तर्कं विना सम्यक् न भवति। तर्काप्रतिष्ठानादित्यादि सूत्रभाष्ये शङ्कराचार्यैः मनुस्मृते श्लोकः उद्धृतः। आर्षं धर्मोपदेशञ्च वेदशास्त्रा विरोधिना यस्तर्केणानुसन्धत्ते स धर्मं वेद नेतरः वेदशास्त्राविरोधिना तर्केण यः अनुसन्धत्ते तर्हि वेदशास्त्रसम्मतः तर्कः आवश्यकः इति स्थितम्। तादृशेन तर्केण श्रुतौ प्रतिपादितस्य आत्मस्वरूपस्य सम्यक् मननं कर्तव्यं, येन तत्त्वस्य निश्चयः मनसि भवति इति। निश्चयः यावत्पर्यन्तं न भवति तावत्पर्यन्तं तत्त्वस्य साक्षात्कारस्य मार्गः उद्घाटितो न भवति। निश्चये सत्येव इदानीं कर्तव्यम् इति भवति। निश्चयस्य तथा स्थानमस्ति। एवं श्रवणं मननम् इति उपायद्वयं यदुक्तम्, एतदुपायद्वयं प्रायः अस्मदादिभिः क्रियते, सामान्यैः लौकिकैः क्रियते। निदिध्यासनादिषु प्रवृत्ताः महाराजादयः। अनेके पंडिताः श्रेष्ठाः विद्वांसः तादृशाः अपि स्वीयम् आयुः अधिकाधिकम् आयुः श्रवणे मनने च यापयन्ति। यथा पाठः, अध्ययनम्, ईदृशगोष्ठी, ग्रन्थलेखः, सर्वमेतत् कार्यं श्रवणे मनने च गतार्थम्। निदिध्यासनार्थं ते न प्रवृत्ताः। कुतः? श्रवणं मननं च आत्मा द्रष्टव्यः इति बुद्ध्या न आरब्धम्। निदिध्यासनस्य आरम्भः नास्ति। कुतः इति अनेके प्रश्नं पृच्छन्ति। निदिध्यासनस्य आरम्भो न भवति, यतोहि श्रवणस्य मननस्य च आत्मा द्रष्टव्यः इति श्रद्धया प्रवृत्तं नास्ति। अतः अन्यकार्यार्थं तत् विनियुक्तं भवति। यत् महाभारते उक्तम् अर्थकरी विद्या षट् जीवलोकस्य सुखानि राजन् इति, तथा भवति। यस्य श्रवणं मननं च सम्यक् सम्पन्नं भवति तस्य बुद्धिकार्यं परिसमाप्तं। ततः परं वैराग्यस्य भक्तेश्च साम्राज्यम् आरभ्यते। गीताभाष्ये पुरुषोत्तमयोगभाष्यस्य भूमिकायां शङ्कराचार्यरुक्तं विरक्तस्य हि संसारात् भगवत्तत्त्वज्ञाने अधिकारः न अन्यस्य। वैराग्यं कीदृशं तत् अस्माकम् अध्ययनस्य, लोकानुभवस्य, चिन्तनस्य, जप सेवादीनां कार्यस्य च पार्यन्तिकं फलम्। वैराग्यं नाम ज्ञानस्य, बुद्धि स्थित ज्ञानस्य परिपक्वावस्था, बुद्धेः मैच्युरिटी वैराग्यम्। कामना चाइल्डिश, वैराग्यं मैच्युरिटी। एवं यस्य निश्चयो भवति सः अवश्यमेव भगवान् बुद्धः यथा, शुकः यथा, शङ्कर भगवत्पादाः यथा तथा प्रवर्तते। पार्यन्तिकनिश्चयः तस्य जातः अस्ति। तस्मिन् जने एव वस्तुतः आत्मध्यानकार्यं सफलं भवति। निदिध्यासने तत्र भक्त्यादीनामेव प्राधान्यं, बुद्धिकार्यं विरतं। तत्र यदि बुद्धिकार्यं स्थितम्, अध्ययनादि रुचिरस्ति, तर्हि निश्चयो न जातः। निश्चये सति तथा प्रवृत्तिर्न भवति। यादृश साध्य अभिप्रायः चित्ते तिष्ठति तादृश साधनावलम्बनं भवति। एवं निदिध्यासनम् इति अग्रिमम् उच्यते। निदिध्यासितव्यः इति मन्त्रे। निदिध्यासितव्यः इत्यस्य अर्थं भाष्यकाराः लिखन्ति निश्चयेन ध्यातव्यः इति। तर्हि श्रवणमननाभ्यां पूर्वं निश्चयः साधनीयः इत्यर्थः। निश्चये साधिते सति सः ध्यानक्षमो भवति। ध्यानार्थश्च भाष्ये अनेकत्र वर्णितः अस्ति। तत्र तुल्यप्रत्यय सन्ततिः, समानप्रत्ययप्रवाहकरणम् इत्यादि शब्दैः ध्यानशब्दार्थः उक्तः। उदाहरणादिकमपि तत्र प्रदत्तमस्ति। ध्यायति बकः, ध्यायति प्रोषितबन्धुः इति ध्यानाच्च इति सूत्रभाष्ये प्रायः स्यादिति मन्ये चतुर्थाध्याये। तर्हि उदाहरणमपि अत्यन्तं सुन्दरं प्रतिभाति। प्रोषितबन्धुः यस्य प्रियस्य वा प्रियतमायाः वा बन्धुः आत्मीयः पतिः अथवा पत्नी यदा दूरे तिष्ठति तदा सा पतिमेव चिन्तयति, पतिं स्मरति सोत्कण्ठा इति। पतिं प्राप्तुं सोत्कण्ठा इत्यपि भाष्यकारैर्लिख्यते। एवम् उत्कण्ठापूर्वकम् आत्मध्यानं सम्पद्येत इति अभिप्रायं भाष्यकारः प्रदर्शयति। यत् निश्चितम् आत्मतत्त्वमस्ति तस्य ध्यानेन किं भवति, सः तन्मयो भवति, तद्रूपो भवति। वेदान्ते ज्ञानं नाम तद्रूपेण स्थित्वा एव अनुभवः ज्ञानं। ब्रह्मतः भिन्नतया स्थित्वा ब्रह्मज्ञानमिति न सम्भवति। ब्रह्मी भूय ब्रह्मज्ञानम्, एतत् कान्सेप्ट् मनसि स्थापनीयं। यथा इदानीं पुरस्तात् उत्पीठिका टेबल् अस्ति, तद् वस्तुतः अहं भिन्नः भूत्वा तद् वस्तु गृह्णामि। भवान् मत्तः भिन्नः, भिन्नतया स्थितं भवन्तम् अहं गृह्णामि। एवं भिन्नतया ब्रह्म तिष्ठति, तच्च ब्रह्म अहं जानामि इति न भवति। वेदान्ते तथा नास्ति। ब्रह्मी भूय ब्रह्म जानीयात्। निदिध्यासनस्य पार्यन्तिकं फलं तदाकारेण अवस्थानम्, तदेव दर्शनम् इत्युच्यते। तर्हि तादृशं दर्शनम् अभेद दर्शनं ज्ञानम् इति उक्तम्। अभेदसाक्षात्कारः सः अस्ति इति। एवं मम कालः प्रायः समाप्तः अस्ति। निदिध्यासने वक्तव्यं बहु अस्ति। तस्य विषयः शास्त्रेषु अधिकतया नास्ति, यतोहि निदिध्यासनं सद्गुरुमाश्रित्य एव सम्भवति। स्वबुद्धिकल्पनया किमपि न भवति। गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत् समित्पाणिः श्रोत्रियं ब्रह्मनिष्ठम् इति तत्र मुण्डके उक्त्वा, तत्र गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत् नाम गुरुम् एव इति कुतः, गुरुको हि इति किमर्थम् इति चेत् शास्त्रज्ञोऽपि स्वयं ब्रह्मान्वेषणं न कुर्यात् इति गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत् इत्यवधारणफलम् इत्युक्तम्। महान् पण्डितः कोऽपि स्यात्, किन्तु सः गुरोः अण्डर्, तदधीनः तद्दासः भूत्वा एव ब्रह्मान्वेषणं कुर्यात् इति एवकारस्य अर्थः इति। तस्मात् निदिध्यासनकार्यं यदस्ति तत् मुख्यतया प्रायोगिकमस्ति। तत् गुरुमार्गेण ये प्रवर्तन्ते तैः सम्यक् अनुष्ठातुं शक्यं। तस्य च एकरूपतापि नास्ति, भिन्नभिन्नरीत्या तदस्ति। अत एव भाष्यकारादयः तत् अधिकृत्य अधिकं विवरणं न कुर्वन्ति। एवम् आत्मनः तत्त्वं पूर्णतया ज्ञातुम् उपायत्रयम् आवश्यकम् इति याज्ञवल्क्यः वक्तुमिच्छन् श्रवणं मननं निदिध्यासनम् इत्युक्तवान्। तत्रापि भाष्यकारैरुक्तम् एवं हि असौ दृष्टो भवति श्रवण मनन निदिध्यासन साधनैः निर्वर्तितैः इति। अर्थात् साधनानुष्ठानं सम्यक् अभ्यसनीयं, तदा एव तत् सम्भवति इति। एवं निदिध्यासन-ध्यानकार्यं यदस्ति तत् अनात्मप्रत्ययानाम् अपसारणेन एव सम्भवति, येन वयं योगानुष्ठानं कुर्मः। योगश्चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः इत्यादि शब्देन तत् अनात्मप्रत्ययानां वारणाय एव सम्भवति। अनात्मप्रत्ययानां वारणं सामान्यतया न सम्भवति। चित्तवृत्तेः हृदयः संस्कारात् भवति। संस्कारं स्थापयित्वा चित्तवृत्तेः निरोधः न सम्भवति। निरोधः नाम एवं कंट्रोलिंग नास्ति। निरोधशब्दस्य अर्थः लयः, निरोधो लयः इत्युक्तम्। कस्यचित् जनस्य एकस्मिन् दिने सहस्रं चित्तवृत्तयः सम्भवन्ति इति चेत् साधनाभ्यासेन किं भवति? साधनञ्च मुख्यतया वैराग्यम् अभ्यासः। शमदमादयः तदङ्गभूताः। तत्र साधनाभ्यासे प्रवृत्ते सति 9,000 किञ्चित् कालानन्तरम् 8,000 7,000 एवं क्षीयमाणा चित्तवृत्ति संख्या अत्युन्नत साधकस्य परमोन्नत साधकस्य 5 7 वा 8 वा चित्तवृत्तयः एकस्मिन् दिने सम्भवन्ति। यथा इदानीं मया भिक्षाटनं कर्तव्यम्, इदानीं स्नानं कर्तव्यम्, एवं चित्तवृत्तीनां संख्या न्यूना 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 भवति। तस्य अर्थः चित्तः लीयमानः अस्ति। चित्तस्य निग्रहः नाम एवं निग्रहं कृत्वा कोऽपि मोक्षं न प्राप्नोति, तथा न सम्भवति। एवं प्राक्टिकल् नास्ति। चित्तमिति किमपि वस्तु अस्ति तदहम् अत्र निगृह्य स्थापयामि येन मम मोक्षो भवति, नास्ति एवं। चित्तं नावश्यकम्, इट् इस् यूस्लेस् थिङ्ग्। चित्तवृत्तेः उदयः यथा न सम्भवति तथा अभ्यासः कर्तव्यः, येन एकस्मिन् दिने 2 चित्तवृत्तयः स्युः, यथा श्रीरामकृष्ण यथा श्रीधरस्वामिनः। तदा चित्तं निरुद्धम् इति भवति, निरोधः प्राप्तः अस्ति इति। एवम् अनुष्ठानेन चित्तम् एव न सम्भवति चेत् इतरेतर अध्यासस्य नास्ति अवकाशः, अध्यासः न सम्भवति तदा। एवं चित्तमेव यदा निर्गतं तदा समस्तलोकसम्बन्ध उत्पादकं यत् चित्तं तत् नास्ति इति कारणात् आत्मा स्वरूपं द्रष्टुं शक्नोति। यथा जपा पुष्पं दूरे स्थापयामश्चेत् स्फटिकः स्वशुभ्रताम् अनुभवति। एवम् अस्य पारमार्थिकतत्त्वम् इति उक्त्वा सर्वान् प्रणम्य अहमत्र विरमामि। प्रणामः।
Upanishad says how to know the self. So I know myself, I am Rakesh, I am a doctorate. So this is not the original individual, this individual identity is not the original identity of the self. So how to know this original identity? We have to listen from the Shastra with the help of the Acharya. And then with the help of the Shastriya Yukti, the logic that is told in the Vedas, we have to strongly establish this knowledge that is gained from the Shastra. And then comes nididhyāsana. So he has told that nididhyāsana is not to be preached, it has to be practiced, it has to be taken from the Sadguru. So while before presenting his speech, he has told that we are all waiting for the speech of respected Sarvapriyananda ji. He is there sitting like a sun, and we are all expecting the sunrise. So before that, there are some birds are chirping. So पक्षिणां कोलाहलेन विगत निद्राः वयम् इदानीं सुन्दर सूर्योदयस्य साक्षात्कारं कुर्मः. So now I request respected Sarvapriyananda ji to speak on the philosophy of the Pañcadaśī.
Om Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Respected Swami Atmapriyananda ji Maharaj, other respected monks, dear brahmacharis, esteemed members of the faculty, students and guests. We just heard some wonderful deliberations on different subjects in Vedanta in Sanskrit. and such lucid, beautiful, eloquent Sanskrit. I'm feeling sad that I cannot speak to you in Sanskrit. I can follow what they were saying in Sanskrit, but unfortunately, I'm not going to say it's a deficiency of our education system, though it is, I think. But still, one can still make it up with one's effort, and I have not done that, so I really can't speak to you in Sanskrit. I'll speak to you in English. As Maharaj said, we have to start by establishing the importance of the Pañcadaśī. And why do you have to do that? Because the Purva Paksha here is, many of you may not know, but Sri Ramakrishna himself, he has made some sharp, rather sarcastic comments about the Pañcadaśī. He says, sometimes one person has come and, did you read Pañcadaśī? I think that person says, who is Pañcadaśī? Good. Something like that is there. Yeah. Another place that these young people, they come, they have read Pañcadaśī and they trouble me with all sorts of useless questions. Now, this is not Ninda of Pañcadaśī. This is, he is trying to praise, trying to tell us who the right adhikari is, what the attitude of the adhikari should be. What is the principle in the Shastra? Nahi ninda nindyam ninditum pravartate. Right? So, ninda, criticism in the Shastras, the principle is not that it is out to criticize something. It's trying to establish a point to praise what should be done. So, the criticism is helping that. That's it. Now, in order to show that, I have got some material. I'll run through that quickly before starting the talk itself. Swami Vivekananda. See, Sri Ramakrishna and after that the direct disciples, the Pañcadaśī was bestseller for them. Many of them, they read the Pañcadaśī thoroughly and recommended it to others. Swami Vivekananda writes to the noted scholar Pramadadas Mitra about Pañcadaśī. He writes a number of questions. He writes, and one of those questions was, the author of Pañcadaśī also says what we call Brahman is the same truth as the Shunya of the Buddhist. What does all this mean? Not exactly the same shloka is there. I searched the whole Pañcadaśī, what he's saying here. But there is a kind of a dialectic going on, and then Vidyaranya Swami says, if this is what you mean by Shunya, most welcome, because this is basically Brahman of Advaita Vedanta. He's talking to the Madhyamika. And by the way, because of this shloka, because of this question of Swami Vivekananda, I became interested in Nagarjuna and Madhyamaka philosophy. I did not know anything about it. I was a brahmachari in the training center. I went to a great Swami, Mokshadhananji, Ram Maharaj, and asked him what is the relationship between Nagarjuna's Shunyavada and Advaita Vedanta. And usually they are opponents, and then he told me there was a scholar, long time ago, he was doing his PhD on this topic. His name was Chandradhar Sharma. So find out. Maharaj had met him when he was a PhD scholar. Then he became a noted philosopher, and his book is there, The Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy, Advaita Tradition in Indian Philosophy, and so on. Chandradhar Sharma. And indeed, his PhD was on Advaita Vedanta and Shunyavada, Nagarjuna Shunyavada. Then, Shashi Maharaj, Swami Vivekananda is writing from London in 1895. Please send a copy of the Pañcadaśī. And a translation within quotes, within brackets, good translation, not worthless, of the Pañcadaśī, if it is available. Then he writes in his memoirs of European travel, in the south again was born the wonderful Saibal Acharya, and he goes on to talk about the greatness of Saibal Acharya, whose superhuman genius and extraordinary industry produced the commentaries on the whole Vedas, and the product of whose wonderful sacrifice, renunciation and researches was the Vedanta treatise named Pañcadaśī. That Sannyasi Vidyaranya Muni or Sayana, according to some, Sayana, the commentator, is on the Vedas, was the brother of Vidyaranya Muni, was born in this land he's talking about, the south of India. Then there's Swami Shishya Samvad, discussions with the disciple. The disciple, Sharat Chandra, is asking Swami Vivekananda, if I am Brahman, why don't I always realize it? And then Swami Vivekananda gives a traditional Advaitic answer. He says, in order to attain that realization in the conscious plane, some instrumentality is required. The mind is that instrument, but it's a non-intelligent substance. It appears to be intelligent only through the light of the Atman behind. Then he quotes from Pañcadaśī, 3rd chapter, 40th verse. So the chit chaya veshata, And then he goes on. Not only this, not only Swami Vivekananda, Swami Turiyanandaji, a number of places, he writes to Swami Yatishwarananda. If you want to get a comprehensive knowledge of non-dual Vedanta, read Pañcadaśī, Oti Uttam Grantha, he says, one of the best books, Pañcadaśī. Another time to a devotee, he again recommends Pañcadaśī as the best book to gather knowledge about non-dual Vedanta. Then Maharaj mentioned Swami Abhedanandaji, who was in the Vedanta Society of New York for more than 20 years. And when he gave his first talk in the West, that was in England actually, in London, Swami Vivekananda asked him to get up and speak about Vedanta. And he gave that talk, and Swami Vivekananda approved it, and he said, I know this message will, if I am not there, this message will keep on coming through these dear lips. He talks about Swami Abhedananda. But what was the message? Abhedanandaji's first talk was on Pañcadaśī, philosophy of Pañcadaśī. I mean, could be argued that in substance at least Swami Vivekananda's message is the same as the message of classical Vedanta as taught by Vidyaranya Muni. Okay, that's the defense of Pañcadaśī. Yesterday, I was giving a talk at the university, the Presidency University in the philosophy department, and it was a whole day seminar on mind and consciousness. And they made it an international seminar for exactly the same reason. Apni achen to Maharaj, it's an international seminar. So, and I told them, see, the most important, the important thing in all our lives, in everything, the most important thing that we have is consciousness. And this was not realized until very recently. Now it is beginning to be realized. In philosophy, the most important question concerns consciousness. Oxford University Press, they said the 5 greatest unsolved questions in philosophy. It's an advertisement gimmick. I think all important questions in philosophy are always unsolved. But 5 greatest, most important questions in philosophy today. And if you look at the list, 4 out of 5 are related to mind and consciousness. Do we have free will? Mind and consciousness. Who am I? Straight away. That's the question, he says. Who am I? Again, consciousness, related to mind and consciousness. Can we know anything at all? The problem of knowledge and skepticism. Again, mind and consciousness. And then there is, what is death? Not in the physiological sense, in the sense of the living being. From our perspective, what is death? Again, relates to mind and consciousness. The last question was about justice, which is not directly related. So 4 out of 5 great questions, according to Oxford University Press today, it relates to mind and consciousness. Consciousness studies has become very important, but only recently. It's how strange that the most important thing in our lives, it's the last thing to be studied. We have progressed in science, still we know about, we've traveled to the moon, our spacecraft has gone out of the solar system, we are investigating the quasars and the furthest galaxies, we have gone down to the ocean bed, we are investigating matter at its tiniest and most even most fundamental levels, down to the level of so-called superstrings. But who is doing all this? To whom is it all this panorama of nature appearing? That consciousness we have not investigated. We're beginning to investigate it now. One of the books, a recent well-known book on consciousness studies, Waking, Dreaming, Being. Look how Vedantic the name is. By Professor Evan Thompson, University of British Columbia in Vancouver. At the beginning he says, consciousness studies is not a new subject. Though we think it's latest subject, it's not a new subject. It started 5,000 years ago in India with the rishis of the Upanishads. He says, Evan Thompson. And he says, these Upanishads represent such a quantum jump in human thought that we should not be ethnocentric. We should not date our history with AD and BC. We should date our history with before Upanishad and after Upanishad. We will not dare to say such a thing. And here is a professor in the Western world who says that this is absolutely right. It's a huge jump in human thought. So this consciousness studies, in the West, in modern philosophy, they don't do consciousness studies. Mind and consciousness are all lumped together. But we call it philosophy of mind. So I had an opportunity a couple of years ago to study at Harvard University. I was supposed to be in the divinity school studying religion. I spent most of my time in the philosophy department in Emerson Hall. And one of the courses which I took was the philosophy of mind, which gave me an overall view of what the state of the art is. Where is the subject at today? Just a survey of all the important papers in the philosophy of mind. And I'm very grateful, Professor Cheryl Chen, she was the teacher there, did a very good job. Let me tell you something which I said yesterday quite openly, that, so I have to see the time. Yeah. What I felt was that the last person who said anything interesting in the philosophy of consciousness, the last person who said anything interesting in the philosophy of in the philosophy of mind was Descartes, more than 300 years ago. That cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I exist, which led to the Descartesian dualism, mind-body dualism. And after that, what has happened, especially in the last 100 years, if you see all the important papers, they fall neatly into two categories. One group trying to reduce mind and consciousness to the body, to the mind, to the brain. Brain nervous system is somehow producing mind and consciousness. Reductionist approach, materialist reductionist approach. That it is nothing other than the body, nothing other than the brain. Nothing but the brain, nothing but the body. Or some others are trying to reduce it to language. It's a delusion created by language. Or behavior, like the behaviorist Skinner and others. So the philosopher Arindam Chakravarti calls it nothing buttery. Nothing buttery. Consciousness is nothing but body, or nothing but brain, nothing but nervous system. And the other group of papers continuously trying to show that, guys, it's not working. You are unable to show to any satisfaction how this brain, just think about it. What is the last thing that you can see in this brain? With the most advanced sensors, fMRI scanners and all, you will see tiny electrical activity. That's all. How does this electrical activity in the brain translate into this vivid experience of life? We see, hear, smell, taste, touch. We think, we desire, we hate, we love, we understand, we remember, we forget. We are awake. We sleep and we dream. How is all this possible with little bursts of electricity? Where is the link? There was a cartoon, consciousness studies, There's one PhD student giving a step-by-step demonstration, and the guide is standing there. The student is saying, step 1, full of mathematics. Step 2, full of mathematics. And then step 4 is full of mathematics. Step 5 is full of mathematics. Step 3 is written, a miracle. Step 3 is a miracle. So the jump, and then the guide is saying, you need to work on that step 3. So, water into wine, the biblical allusion. By miracle, water is transmuted into wine. So we understand wine, we understand water. But how? How is the water of electrical activity in the brain? How does it become our living experience? See, I was at Harvard, next door MIT. And they were working on the latest AI, robotics. Those machines can do everything that we do. Everything, behaviorally. And they can sense, they can drive a car better than any driver. There are machines there which can take decisions, which of course have huge amounts of memory. The phone which you have in your pocket has more memory than all the other human beings combined here together. They are creative. Things which we thought only human beings could do till now. They're creative. They're writing poetry. Their machines are writing sometimes rubbish, but sometimes good also. Painting, and so on. Only one thing they cannot do. There's only one difference between those machines and us. Those machines do not have any internal first-person living experience like we have. This vivid experience you have, conscious experience we all have. Those machines don't have it. You say, how do you know, Maharaj? Ask the experts. Ask the engineers who are building it. Ask the computer scientists who are programming it. All of them will say, no consciousness, because we have no idea what it is anyway. We are not programming it or designing it for consciousness. We can explain intelligence. We can explain creativity. But this experience, anubhava, none of those machines have any anubhava. One neuroscientist, Dr. Anil Seth, he's in Cambridge, Indian origin, British neuroscientist, he says, It doesn't take intelligence to suffer, it takes consciousness to suffer. A mouse, when a cat catches it, it suffers. It's not intelligent. I mean, not very intelligent. Deep Blue machine can defeat a chess grandmaster. It does not suffer. If the chess grandmaster defeated Deep Blue would not feel humiliated. But a little mouse, which is not smart, can't play chess. If the cat catches it, it suffers. That experience of pain is there. Experience of pleasure is there. Joy. All of this is possible for us, not for the most intelligent of machines. What is the difference? Consciousness. I'm not talking about the highest thing which Vedanta is talking about, just our typical consciousness which we have here. So this very experience of life. David Chalmers, who is there, who's the head of the mind-brain consciousness unit in NYU, he is probably the greatest philosopher in the Western world living today. He is known for his formulation, the hard problem of consciousness. What is the hard problem of consciousness? If you Google it, you'll see it's the biggest thing in consciousness studies all over the world now. The hard problem of consciousness is that how can activity in a physical system like the brain give you this internal experience of life? Each of us has an anubhava. All the time we are having an experience. How can some physical activity? See, no other system in the world has these two sides. This table, it's only a table. It does not have an internal state. It's even the sophisticated thing like the computer. It's a machine. It's all public. It is just one thing, the machine itself, which can be fully described. But we here, there is an external public thing, the body, which the doctor can study and the neuroscientist can study, but each of us has an internal feel. So how does that happen? And he calls it the hard problem of consciousness. And humorously, one philosopher, Galen Strawson, University of Texas, Austin, he wrote a half humorous piece in the New York Times. He says, hard problem of matter. He says, there is no hard problem of consciousness. Consciousness is evident to all of us all the time. We are conscious. It is matter which appears in consciousness. It's matter which has to be explained. And in all our efforts in explaining matter today, in the 21st century, matter has become ever more mysterious. It's disappearing before our very eyes. It's a hard problem of matter, not a hard problem of consciousness. Consciousness is ever evident. What a Vedantic statement it is. Now, what I said, my last assignment in the philosophy of mind at Harvard University was, I said, this whole subject has stalled in the West. In order to revive this subject, you need a new impulse. And they know that. They said that we are waiting for that new impulse, new idea, it will come from neuroscience. I said, no. The hard problem of consciousness, if you understand it, it shows in principle you cannot solve this problem by doing more science. Ed Witten, who's probably the greatest physicist in the world today, one article said he's the nearest thing that we have got to Einstein today. Somebody asked him, he's not a neuroscientist, not a consciousness studies person, but a very intelligent person. Somebody asked him, do you think the problem of consciousness will be solved? And he said, more we investigate the brain, the more we will know about the brain. But I think consciousness will remain a mystery. Take up Pañcadaśī. The very first thing that Vidyaranya Swami says in the Pañcadaśī, it will unlock many of the knots, the confusions in all the papers I was reading at Harvard University Philosophy of Mind. You see, how can Indian philosophy, how can Vedanta, how can Vidyaranya Swami help us in our modern consciousness studies, in our modern philosophy of mind? Let me give an example. The very first thing that he says in that book, Pañcadaśī. Of course, first two shlokas are salutations to Guru and the usual thing that you do in Mangalacharan, that what is the subject and so on and so forth. Then he starts a remarkable performance from third verse, third shloka of Pañcadaśī, first chapter, up to the 10th, only in 8 verses. Demonstration how by logic, Shruti Anugrihita, he says, Yuktya tatha vidam, just by logic and referring to your own experience which you have it right now, I will show you that you are Brahman right now. What an amazing performance in 8 verses. And the key to that is the third verse where he starts. The first thing he teaches there. Shabdasparshadayo vedya vaichitryaджagare prithak tato vibhakta tat samvid aikarupyanna bhidyate. I tell you, this one verse has so much wisdom packed into it. Entire course, Philosophy of Mind, Harvard University, the Mind-Brain Consciousness Unit in New York University, whole hard problem of consciousness, everything is solved by this one insight. What is that insight? He says, look at your own experience. Which experience? Just ordinary experience. This is the beauty of Advaita Vedanta, by the way. There is a path. See, in religion you have multiple paths. There is a path, belief, bhakti, worship, commonly understood. All the theistic religions of the world is based on faith. So much so in the United States, they don't say religion, they say faith. What is your faith? If you look at Pañcadaśī, will you say this is faith? Not quite the right word for it. One path is like that, and that path is very difficult today because of the tremendous attack. Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, militant new atheists. Richard Dawkins was asked, how many atheists are there in the world that you're going on talking about atheism? And he said, true, there are very few. If you take the whole population of the world, less than 1% will be atheist. Consider, there was a survey done of all the Nobel Prize winners living in the world today. More than 90% are atheists. More than 90% are atheists. Draw your own conclusion. The smarter you are, the less likely you are to believe in God. So, the path of bhakti, unsupported by reason and experience, is difficult to sustain today, especially today, in this day and age. And Swamiji knew that. So, Maharaj quoted that only religion which will be acceptable to rational minds today, from that time onwards, is the religion of Vedanta, philosophy of Vedanta. In a broad sense. There's another path. I'm going to be very careful here. What Swami Vivekananda did was path of experience. He goes to Sri Ramakrishna and says, have you seen God? And then first book that he translated was Raja Yoga, based on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and published from the Vedanta Society of New York, actually. That was the first book. Path of experience. And it's very appealing that you come, I will show you God. Swami Vivekananda said, religion is realization. If God exists, I should be able to see God. If I have an immortal soul, I should be able to feel it. It's not believing in something, it's realization. But here is the problem. What experience? It is mystical experience, extraordinary experience. By samadhi, you will see God. And Sri Ramakrishna sees God. Again and again, the Gospel of Ramakrishna, you find Sri Ramakrishna is talking to Ma Kali. Ma Kali is also talking to Sri Ramakrishna. The problem is, everybody else in the room sees only Sri Ramakrishna, not Ma Kali. Everybody else in the room only hears Sri Ramakrishna's words, not Mother Kali's words. Only Sri Ramakrishna is able to hear that. The skeptic here will say, I don't doubt that you are experiencing something, but it's a product of your. Ye dhila hai. And so many people in Dakshineshwar used to say, he's mad. Sri Ramakrishna is mad. Why so many people? Narendranath Datta. He was a skeptic. So he said, Sri Ramakrishna says, Ore kotha koi re? God talks to me. And Narendranath Datta is saying, Naren is saying, Oh Omni Hai. That happens. If you put sufficient pressure on your mind, you will get hallucination. So that's what is going on. And today, a neuroscientist, the same argument, Pagol argument. So the Pagol argument today is given by neuroscientists. We don't doubt that you have these experiences, but it's not because you are seeing God, you are feeling one with the universe. Not that it's true. You have a little clot in your brain. This little blood is here and it's distorting your perceptions. You are feeling like this. Or you are, if you are in America, the first suspicion will be you are high. So they will first say, oh, you are high, you are seeing God, you are one with the universe. That is the problem with mystical experience. First of all, genuine mystical experience, very difficult to identify. Everybody seems to have mystical experience, especially in America, especially in California. A lot of people have mystical experience. Ashokanandaji Maharaj said, Berkeley, that's where the hippie movement started in those days, 1960s, 50s, 60s. Ashokanandaji Maharaj said, Berkeley, wonderful place, an avatar on every street corner. They are high. They are high. So naturally they feel something. I remember going to Hollywood when I went there first. And one gentleman, very nice, well-meaning person, called me and wanted to share his mystical experiences with me, how he meditated, how the Kundalini awakened. And then he said he went to the Muladhara Chakra Swami and then boom! What happened? What is boom? The chakra has opened. Then it rose further. Swadhisthana chakra, boom! আমি ভাবলাম এই তো 7টা চক্র এখন বুম হবে এতগুলো 7টা. Then I told our Maharaj there, Sarvadevanji Maharaj, এইরকম বলছে. Then Maharaj said, তুমি ভয় পেও না, এরকম অনেক পাগল আছে এখানে. So that is the pagol argument. How do you know which is genuine, which is not genuine? Advaita Vedanta comes here and says, not faith, not believing in something, not extraordinary experience, just your ordinary experience, which experience everybody has. Who does not wake, dream and sleep? We all wake, dream and sleep. Drashta and drishya, the very structure of our experience is subject and object. Every experience, everybody has drashta and drishya. Who doesn't have it? The pancha kosha, the 5 layers of the human being, and this body, mind, personality. Who does not have it? We all have it. That's all that is required. Then the Upanishad will point out to you the truth that you are Brahman. You are Brahman now. Why can it not be pointed out? You are right now, right here, all the time. You are that reality. It should be very easy to point it out. Upanishad does that. For Uttama Adhikari, that pointing out is enough. For the Madhyama Adhikari, or later, or maybe less lower Adhikaris, what Sir just said, Shruti Anugrihita Tarka. Argument, logic, reason, pointing it out. It may sound very sophisticated, high philosophy, but Vedantins are very clear. This is actually because we are on a lower stage. With the purified mind, Upanishad, direct instruction by the Guru, enough. Nothing more is required. But all these supportive arguments are required here. Shabdasparshadayo Vedya. Who does not hear, smell, taste, touch, see? We are all doing that all the time. So, Vaichitrya Jagare Prithak. In your waking state, you have thousands of experiences. You are having experiences now. And they are all different from each other. They are all different from each other. When you see something and you see something else, different experience. You hear something, different experience. We have thousands of experiences throughout the day. But notice one thing. Illumining all of them, revealing all of them, shining through all of them. Tato vibhakta tat samvit. There is one consciousness. That consciousness, like the light which reveals everything in this room, that consciousness is one and the same. When you see something, that's a special experience. When you hear something, that's a special experience. But the consciousness which gives you that first-person experience of seeing, of hearing, of smelling, of thinking, understanding, not understanding, remembering, forgetting, one consciousness throughout. Right now, he's saying, and that one consciousness, since the experiences are all changing continuously, this consciousness which illumines all of them is not changing because it's the same consciousness which illumines it. This is the key which unlocks whole of Pañcadaśī, whole of Vedanta. Consciousness separate from the mind. See, objects of experience are different. And when they come in through the sense organs, which are all different, come to the mind, they give rise to different vrittis. Vrittis are different, objects are different. Because objects are different, vrittis are different. But the consciousness illumining those vrittis, giving you the experience of, right now, the experience, how we are having this experience. That consciousness is one and unchanging. Tato vivakta tat samvid aikarupyat na bhidyate. This simple insight, I'm telling you, is enough to create a revolution in the philosophy of mind in consciousness studies today, if they accept it. Slowly they're beginning to. David Chalmers, I know him, I talk with him sometimes, email we exchange. He's not at all coming at it from an Advaita Vedanta or Buddhist perspective. Once Deepak Chopra told me that स्वामी जी ये सब हम लोगों की चीज लेके अपना नाम से चला रहे हैं. They are not giving us credit. They are taking ideas from us and then they are passing it off as their own ideas. I said, Chopra ji, ठीक है. It's good. If they come at it from a Western perspective, a materialist perspective, a reductive perspective, an atheistic perspective, and come to the same conclusion which you are talking about, you should be happy. It does not change one consciousness, illumining all the experiences throughout our waking state. Then what happens? Vidyaranya Swami says you fall asleep and you have dreams, many kind of experiences in dreams. And all of those dream experiences, external world has disappeared. You have dreams, you have forgotten that the body is sleeping on the bed. In the dream world, you are also there. An avatar has been created in virtual reality terms. They are using these terms now in virtual reality, avatar. The avatar has been created there and you are experiencing a virtual world. Oh, by the way, David Chalmers' latest book, Reality Plus, he talks about one place Advaita and another place Sankhya for the first time. So, in the dream world also, variety of experiences we have, variety of dreams, same consciousness continues. That consciousness is not different from the waking, the consciousness which illumines the waking state. Deep sleep. World is also gone, dreams are also gone, an undivided mass of darkness, no division between subject and object. Tamaha, our Vidyaranya Swami calls it. But, and there are so many arguments, I will not go into that, but there also consciousness, it illumines that darkness. That experience of deep sleep, it is also the consciousness is illumining that because that's why it's an experience. After all, what's an experience? What is anubhava? Experience is consciousness plus object. So there's an object, that blankness is that object. And consciousness is shining on that. You know what it's like? This whole room is filled with light. And that projector is there. If you switch on the projector, you will find some kind of light is coming there. You will not find anything in between. But if you put your hand between the projector and the screen, you will see the hand will blaze with white light. So there is light between the projector and the screen. You don't see it. But if there is something to reflect it, suddenly you will see it gets manifested. What does light do for an object? Illumines the object, reveals the object. What does object do for the light? It manifests the light. What does consciousness do for the world? It reveals the world. What does the world, Vishaya, what does it do for consciousness? It makes it manifest, Vyakta. You can appreciate it now. Deep sleep also, same consciousness. After all, just think, people will say in deep sleep, no consciousness is there. Same consciousness continues. After all, why do we report an experience of deep sleep? Every culture has a report of experience of deep sleep. In English, slept like a log. I did not know anything. Banglate আমরা বলি ঘুমিয়ে কাদা. It's a hot and humid climate, no? So when you sleep, you feel like mud after you get up. Every culture has a report of deep sleep, which means it's an experience. And Vidyaranya gives his own arguments. So Vedanta has a few arguments to show that there is consciousness in deep sleep also. Which, by the way, again goes to show consciousness is not the mind. When the mind shuts down, consciousness has not shut down. Which illumines, like Sir said, we are not talking here about waking experience, dream experience, or deep sleep experience, but that which is apart from all of them, in and through all of them, and illumining all of them, and even giving existence, satta and spurti, to waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Then concludes Vidyaranya, this is the story of one day. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, many experiences, one consciousness running through, unchanging consciousness, illumining all of it. What's the story next day? Same story. Day after that, same story. Next month, same story. Throughout your life, same story. One consciousness illumining many experiences. Masabdha yuga kalpeshu gatagamyeshu nekadha nodeti nastametyeka samvid esha swayam prabha. How poetic. Months go by, years go by, your whole life of this body goes by. Consciousness does not go. Look at the argument there. We'll immediately say after the body, brain is destroyed, consciousness is gone. Nonsense. That is the whole hard problem of consciousness. Demonstrate how consciousness can be reduced to the brain, then only claim that after death of the body and destruction of the brain, consciousness will be gone. No. Sukshma Sharira transmigrates. So the reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, goes with the Sukshma Sharira, no doubt. But one, the awareness, consciousness, Chit, Samvit, that is constant. Not only that, ages go by. Yuga, Kalpa, universes cycle, Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya, consciousness one and constant. What is that? You. You are one and constant. Though the universe may come and go, universes may come and go. Then he gives a couple of very interesting arguments next. So by this time what he has shown, one consciousness, you are that, and it is constant and unchanging. This constant unchanging nature of consciousness, technically Upanishadic language, Sat. The consciousness aspect of it, Chit. And then next, how is it Ananda? He gives two beautiful arguments to show that this consciousness, which you are, we are, the source of continuous joy and maximum joy. Two arguments. What argument does he show? First of all, he says, you are your own source of continuous joy. You are ever the source of happiness, never the source of unhappiness. How? See, what we like, we try to get it. What we don't like, we get rid of it. Reverse it now. If we are trying to get rid of something, it is not making me happy, it's making me unhappy. If I'm trying to keep something, it is making me happy. As long as something makes me happy, I want to keep it, increase it, preserve it. If something makes me unhappy, I want to get rid of it. Now say, look at yourself. Nobody ever says that mana bhuvam, let me not be. But bhuyasam, let me be. Everybody says, I must exist, I must exist. Nobody wants to destroy oneself. And don't give me that argument about suicide. I know it's going on in your mind. So what about suicide? You work it out for yourself. Suicide, examination is poor, I must kill myself. How will I show my face to the parents? So no, that was a mistake. Examination, you have passed the examination, got good results. Oh, good. What about suicide? No, now I don't need to commit suicide. I don't want to get rid of myself. I want to get rid of the problem, which is adventitious. You are the source, so you never want to kill yourself. You never want to destroy yourself. You want to exist continuously. But note the argument, that we want to keep that which gives us happiness. If I want to keep myself all the time, then somehow I must be the source of continuous happiness myself. Self, Atma, is the source of continuous happiness. Then argument. See, the experience which we all have, we want to live. That much we all accept. But its implication is what Vidyaranya is drawing out. Second, maybe little bit of trickle of happiness is coming, but is it Ananda, maximum happiness? Yes. If you loved something for the sake of another, that another is loved more than the first. Mother loves the child's toys. Whom does she love more, the toys or the child? Does she ever think, oh, the child is coming from school, I want to play with the toys, but the child will come and play with the toys? No. She loves the toys because they belong to the child, so she loves the child more than the toys. If one thing is loved for another, you love that other thing more than the first thing. So one young man was asked, he said, I love my job. And somebody asked him, so it's not for the sake of the money? No, it's for the sake of the job. I love my job. All right, do the job, we will not give you the money. No. Take a choice. You'll get money and no job. Or job, no money. Which one will you take? Money. All right, I'll give you the money. You want money, right? Yes. But you can't spend it. It'll only be money. You can't do anything with it. You can't even touch it. No. I want to spend it and buy things for my family and for myself and all. All right. You can spend it and get the things, the objects, but you can't use it, you can't give it to the family or anything like that. Just objects will be there. No. I have to give it to my family. I have to give wife, children, or to give those objects. Oh, so you want? The objects are not important. It's for your family. Family is more important than the object. One thing is loved for the sake of the other. That one is loved more. Family. Said, yes. You love your wife and children most. Yes, that's right. All right. You can give it to them You can do everything you want for them, only they will not be your family anymore. Random family. No. They must be my family. Now you see, start from job, money, objects to purchase, goods and services, family, myself. One thing is loved more than the earlier one. Come, you could jump like that, come to who is loved the most? I. But what do we love? That which gives us happiness. What do we love more? That which gives us more happiness. What do we love most? That which gives us maximum happiness. But I love myself the most. He quoted the original text from the Upanishad. So, it is the source of greatest happiness, continuous happiness, greatest happiness. Now, Vidyaranya triumphantly concludes, 10th verse. Open your Upanishad now. This continuous existence, this luminous existence, this existence which is blissful, continuous and maximum happiness. In the Upanishad, he says, Shrutyanteshu, at the final declaration of the Shrutis, Vedanta, in Vedanteshu, declared this is called Sat Chit Ananda. This is called Brahma. You have already admitted this is I. Upanishad is calling it Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. You have already admitted it. And this is based on common experience, irrefutable, shared public experience for everybody. What a remarkable demonstration. Only the first few verses of Pañcadaśī. I tell you, every problem in modern philosophy of mind, especially consciousness and philosophy and mind, the answer is here. The key is here. And these are the treasures that are locked up in Pañcadaśī. Not just Pañcadaśī. Yesterday I gave a talk. Then Amita Chatterjee, ma'am, she is a very well noted philosopher, gave a wonderful talk. Broad naturalism view of consciousness. We're thinking, what is this broad naturalism? Then she started talking and then it felt familiar. At one point, and then she looked around. Bujhte parcho to kar kotha bolchi? She's a teacher, no? So tell. We all stared at her. Not sure. This is a Nyaya theory of consciousness. She just given a title, broad naturalism. So these are the insights you have, not only in Pañcadaśī, in Advaita Vedanta. Not only Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita, Dvaita, the entire range of Buddhist philosophy, especially Vijnanavada and Madhyamaka. Extraordinary analysis and insight into consciousness, and which can be of great use in consciousness studies today. So thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful occasion. I offered my pranams to Revered Swami Atmapriyananda and other monks. Revered Swami Vipashanji has come all the way from Belur Math. I seek his blessings and namaskars to all of you. Thank you so much.
Our sincere thanks to Swami Sarvapriyananda ji for this erudite speech. And I would like to thank Revered Swami Atmapriyananda ji, respected Swami Japasiddhananda ji, our head department of Sanskrit and philosophy, and other senior monks present here, and all the audience, especially the guests from the other departments, and even some teachers from the outside campuses and colleges are also there, and our students. With this, Purnamada, we will finish. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hare Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Shanti Shanti.
Same Shanti. Thank you.